Welcome to the Sandler Training Hour. You're with your hosts, Jason and Jim Stevens. And Jim, this week I thought it'd be interesting to talk a bit about one of the two things that touch each other in Sandler. First is it only takes 5 seconds of courage to get your gumption up to have a hard conversation. It's not that we don't do it, it's that we vacillate away from putting the energy into it and then getting the results that we want to get as opposed to what we will get if we avoid it. But the second more I guess difficult follow-up is that you can't have a hard conversation once or expect that once a hard conversation happens, you will now have 100% compliance. It's just unrealistic, and no human has ever worked that way. And if you're working with people who comply immediately, chances are you didn't need the hard conversation in the first place.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So in our conversation today, I thought we could go through what is the reality behind this? What are we trying to accomplish with hard conversations? And then what are some practices that we can do to get better results following up on hard conversations? So I'll kick it over to you. What are your initial thoughts?
Well, initially, my thought is we avoid hard conversations because we don't see the need for them.
Mm,
We don't see the need for them because thought precedes action. So if I'm thinking about a challenge I'm having with Jason and I want to bring that up in a conversation and resolve it, the first obstacle I face is my supposition about what will he think, how will he
yeah,
respond, what collateral damage might that create, and all of our brains are very creative, and we're able to extrapolate circumstances and situations that are likely to never happen,
yeah,
but yet the thought of it keeps us from taking action. And so I love how Jason you phrased the conversation here. It's really having that 5 seconds of courage that says, "Hey, I want to bring up a conversation that I'm feeling a little uncomfortable having, but I think our relationship would be better off if we had it. Would you be okay discussing blank with me?"
yeah,
And just the courage to bring it up is a big part of the battle.
yeah.
And now we can at least initiate that conversation.
Yeah, and to your point, once we've had the conversation, it's easier to talk about it. But sometimes instead of bringing up a conversation that we've had that was rough, but we came out with good outcomes on, instead of going back to, hey, remember when we had that hard conversation where we were touching on some of the issues that we come up with regularly? I think it's time to revisit that. Instead of doing that, we sometimes default into, well, it's time for a new, different, and hard conversation about the
Yeah,
same topic
yeah,
without referencing the past history of it. And I think that that happens because we think like, well, they must have forgot. And us as trainers, one of the things in the back of our minds is you haven't said it enough when you're tired of saying it. You've said it enough when the other person mentions that you always bring it up or you always say that. And
yeah,
if we're talking about hard conversations, like no one wants to be like, well, you always bring this up. Because
yeah.
if you're running into that experience with a hard conversation, there's a chance that you're playing into the sunken cost fallacy of a relationship where it's just not a good fit. But to put context around like what does the follow-up look like and when we're having a hard conversation, then what is the reminder? This, I think, is where process gets in our way because we're defaulting into assuming that things are actually working well and that the process is solving for the issues that we're having. Which is like I'm treating you, Jim, as I treat every prospect in the stage that you're in the pipeline, because I've defined my sales stages as so specific that I've tried to solve all issues that I ever have in a general way, rather than treating you specific as an individual. And this is where compliance comes into the equation because honestly, a lot of like if you've had a bad manager in your life, chances are because they managed through compliance only rather than through like engaging you where you are, figuring out, okay, so we're running into a consistent issue, and then giving you ownership to the solvency. So,
Yeah.
for instance, if you're regularly late, it may sound some version of, Jason, every couple of days you come in just a little later. And I know that our rule is you're here on time. So I'm curious, what's the gap between when you show up and what you know?
Yeah.
Because I can say, Jason, stop showing up late, but they should know this. I need to figure out what that gap is on their side.
Yeah.
I can't expect compliance to be some magical button. And
Yeah.
in most cases, we're imagining it to be a magical whip, right?
And I think the problem in its essence is that if you have a problem you're trying to fix, and that problem you perceive to be a person,
So,
you've turned the person into an object.
yeah,
And now it's a manipulative game for you to try to control an object that has free agency and does not want to be controlled.
yeah.
Recognizing that, I think a better mindset rather than fix the problem, let's think more in terms of how can I help things go right for
Mm,
you?
yeah.
Uh, so the frustration in your example, the frustration I have is my expectation that our meetings start at blank and we don't get kicked off until everybody's assembled. And I know there's things going on in your world. How can I help you be on time for these meetings?
Yeah.
It shifts it from a finger pointing judgmental conversation to really putting the onus on the person who, I mean, face it, they know they're late, they know they shouldn't be late. The whole time trying to get on time, they're cursing themselves because they are late. There's no surprise here, and scolding someone who knows that they're in the wrong doesn't help. So what
Yeah.
need help?
Yeah. I want to double click on what you just said. When you objectify someone, you turn the relationship into a transaction. Because I think that's first and foremost one of the worst games that we play in relationships. Because what happens if you do something 20 times in a row because you think it's going to lead the other person to give you something that you wanted? Well, now we're building up bitterness and resentment because we're doing what we think we should do in order to get what we want, but it takes away the agency of the other person and the fact that the relationship isn't built on a collection of transactions. You consistently do what you think I want you to do in order for you to get me to do what you want me to do.
Yeah, right.
It's the same loop of poor communication where we're sending out signals, we're sending out noise, and then hoping that our counterparts translate this noise into action in the direction that we want them to go.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
So thinking in terms of solving a problem through a difficult conversation is better served by recognizing it starts with relationship,
yeah.
not with problem solving.
Yeah, and this goes to the general and the specific in an interesting way because each human is different, yes. And relationships have general scopes that they abide by. And communication generally flows in a pretty similar direction. So there is a pattern that we can recognize through communication. The real value is bringing in an understanding that each individual is different in their complexity, and that complexity, the more you try to understand it, the larger the payoff is because you're no longer playing a game of I told someone what to do, don't be late. and now they're never going to be late again. Instead, we're playing the game of I asked you what the issue is. And now that I know to some degree what your answer is, I have a follow-up plan that can remind you, reaffirm, or question some of the underlying issues that you're running up with without me owning the fact that your lateness is a direct reflection of my ability to lead.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's the worst outcome where we're looking for a transactional response to someone to comply with what we want, and we're taking the fact that they don't do it as a personal affront to our dignity and how we see ourselves. When really, it's not like you don't have to go out of your way to own why someone else is the way that they are. Just figure out if they can treat you as individually as you're trying to treat them.
Yeah. 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 Having that perspective of, I want to help things go right just helps eliminate some of the judgmental overtone that triggers defensive posture.
Yeah.
Because somebody who is persecuting themselves because they're late, and you come in and pile on, you become the persecutor, and subconsciously to them, you are the person perpetuating the problem. It's not me anymore. Now it's I'm being pushed into something I don't want to do. So it's really being emotionally aware enough to recognize that the most efficient thing is not the most effective thing.
Yeah.
It's efficient for me to tell you to be on time, just not going to be very effective. It's effective for me to take time to understand what's happening in here that keeps you from being punctual. And if we can fix that, if I can help you see yourself differently, it really is it's a solvable issue.
Yeah. Because the overall painted picture is if I make it about me managing you better, then it becomes, oh, I should be a better manager, which is a transactional moment with myself. When really, this is a conversation between the two of us.
And
So that,
and this specific example, I have had this conversation in the past, and it turned out through discovery that the person I was talking to, they always felt I can do one more thing.
yeah,
And it was their urgency to get stuff off their list was creating an unintended consequence that had a negative impact. And so once we talked through that and got to the point where they gave themselves permission to say, I can't do that one more thing, the problem went away.
yeah. And instead of stuffing more in, that's us with Sandler Training.
But
Thanks for
one other thing,
Thanks for your time today. And if you have questions about who we are and what we do, you found your way here. So backtrack your way to our website, reach out to us. Otherwise, good selling. Good luck out there.